esports are now pushing up. Here goes the Brawl multi just to shut down this. Perks takes legitimately no damage. Darkwind bounces back and forth as here comes the Crow Storm. There is the heal coming out from Wadid Soraka. Gonna trade 1-for-1. Wonder for Oduwamne. Double kill for...
Every few years, League gets a meta so powerful, so disruptive, that it flips the entire game on its head. But this one broke more than just balance. It broke the structure of League itself. Pro matches turned into synchronized farming simulations. Solo queue became a nightmare you couldn't dodge. And here's the scary part. Even after Riot killed it, this thing keeps coming back. This meta wasn't just overpowered, it was disturbing, because it exposed a flaw in League's design that players were smart enough and ruthless enough to exploit to the absolute limit. And if you stick around, you'll see how this meta went from a niche cheese to a global epidemic, why it forced Riot to change the rules, and how it still lurks in today's game, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again.
Here comes the Ornhorns, and they're going to knock up two. Let's see the Baron doing all the work for him. Perks picking up a killing spree on the Mundo. Baron's still up for grabs. Double kill, down goes Amazing, and Schalke are going to get cleaned off the map. That's a triple kill for Perks.
In 2018, League of Legends hit a breaking point. One strategy bent the rules so far, Riot had to step in and reprogram the game itself just to erase it. This strategy was called the funnel meta. In case you've never heard about the funneling meta, here's what it looked like. You take two champions, one hyper carry, one support, and you stick them in the mid lane. The support doesn't actually try to farm or carry. Their whole job is to protect the bag. They freeze the wave, zone enemies off, and make sure that the carry can take every last drop of mid lane gold. Meanwhile, the carry's running into the jungle, clearing camps like a traditional jungler, and then coming right back to vacuum up the minions their partner saved for them. And then they go back into the jungle again, over and over and over. In normal League, a carry's power curve is balanced around having one source of income, lane gold or jungle gold. The funnel meta smashed that limit. Suddenly, your Master Yi or Karthus is 2-3 levels ahead before you've even hit your first major item. And once they've got those stats, it doesn't matter if it's one enemy or 5. They just walk at you and you lose. It wasn't just solo queue that was suffering. Pro matches developed into farm fests with two players ignoring their lanes entirely, junglers turned into glorified ward bots, and early game fighting all but disappeared. You tune in for the LCK expecting lane skill shots and mechanical outplays, and instead watch two players take turns last hitting minions and walking between camps for 20 straight minutes. And here's the kicker. This wasn't an accident. This was a smart strategy. So smart, in fact, that it started popping up across every major region. In just a few weeks, it went from a rare cheese comp to a global epidemic. Which raises the question, where did this monstrosity even come from?
People hate playing against funneling. It makes everyone so toxic. Every funneling game you play, there's going to be people in all chat bitching, complaining. Your team's going to be complaining. If you start doing bad, you're going to get flamed for sure. If you start doing good, the other team's going to flame you. It's just disgusting.
When people talk about the funnel meta, most point to 2018 as the year it exploded. That's true, but the roots of this strategy run much deeper. Long before it hijacked professional matches, funneling was already alive and well in another corner of League. Back in the days of Twisted Treeline, the now retired 3v3 game mode, funneling wasn't just a gimmick, it was the default playstyle. Teams would stack all their resources on one hyper carry, letting them take both the top lane and jungle gold, while their teammates played Protect the King. It worked there for the same reason it would later break Summoner's Rift. More income equals faster power spikes, and faster power spikes mean you control the game before the enemy can even react. Even on Summoner's Rift, fragments of the strategy were already visible years before anyone called it funnel. In Seasons 2 and 3, it wasn't unusual to see mid laners take nearby jungle camps like wolves or wraiths between waves for a small but consistent lead. Blue buff priority for mid was expected, not questioned, because a little extra XP and gold could decide lane dominance. It was a subtle form of resource funneling, hiding in plain sight. The real modern form of funneling started brewing in 2017 on the Chinese servers, far from the spotlight of the LCK or LCS. High elo boosters, always looking for the most efficient way to win fast, discovered that pairing a champion like Master Yi with a support like Taric could climb accounts with ruthless consistency. The logic was simple. Taric's Bastion Tether let him channel his stun through Yi's Alpha Strike, making it land perfectly as Yi reappeared. Combined with Taric's armor buffs, healing, and ultimate, the duo could survive almost anything while Yi shredded entire teams. It was brutally efficient, and in solo queue, where coordination to punish was rare, it felt unstoppable. In these early days, the most popular version wasn't even Yi and Taric. Some boosters used Kayle instead, stacking healing and invulnerability effects to keep the carry alive while they farmed the map dry. Items like Ardent Sensor and Knight's Vow supercharged the strategy even further, letting the support turn into a walking stat stick for the hyper carry. It was cheap, it was dirty, and it was devastating. But at the time, it was still just an underground trick, powerful in the right hands, but not yet warping the game on a global scale. That moment would come soon, and it would start with a patch that changed the very foundation of the jungle. If 2017 was the laboratory where funneling was perfected, then 2018 was a year Riot unknowingly gave it superpowers. That started with patch 8.10, a jungle overhaul that, on paper, was meant to slow the pace of the early game snowballing. Instead, it opened the perfect lane for funnel to march straight into the meta. The biggest culprit was Rift Scuttler. Before 8.10, taking Scuttle was a nice bonus, a bit of vision, and gold. After 8.10, it became a jackpot. The XP rewards skyrocketed in the early levels, and gold doubled from 70 to 140. That's not just a gentle buff, that's a drop everything and fight for it buff. And because 2 Scuttles spawned at the start of every game, the team with lane priority could grab both before the 3-minute mark. A normal jungler had to fight tooth and nail for that advantage. A funnel comp, with a mid laner and jungler permanently glued together, could take them uncontested every single time.
Valuable shelter. I don't think anyone. I don't think no one gets Scuttle. Scuttle just scuttles off on the side.
At the same time, Riot redistributed jungle camp XP, lowering the rewards from key camps like blue and red in the early levels. That slowed down solo junglers even more, especially champions who relied on hitting level 3 quickly for early ganks. So now you had weaker early game junglers, a Scuttle Crab worth 10 times more than before, and a strategy that guaranteed permanent river control. The result? Funnel comms could snowball without ever having to fight. They just starved you off the map.
Have map pressure, asserting our dominance everywhere, taking lane priority and everything over. We're able to get the Scuttle Crab, and then we keep going. We got to collect another wave, making sure none of these waves are dying to the towers.
Then came challenging Smite, the red Smite. On its own, it was already strong. Mark a target, deal bonus true damage over time. If you reveal them, and here's the nasty part, you will reduce their damage to you by 20%. That debuff stacked perfectly with Taric's defensive kit, turning the hyper carry into an unkillable wrecking ball in early skirmishes. Even if you had the numbers advantage, fighting into a funneled carry with red Smite felt like trying to win an arm wrestle against a brick wall. As if that wasn't enough, patch 8.11 delivered a final push. Riot sweeping nerfs to traditional AD carries left bot lane in chaos. Mages, bruisers, even Heimerdinger were being played instead. Suddenly, the idea of replacing a conventional marksman with a turbo-fed mid lane carry didn't just seem viable, it looked optimal. The perfect storm was here. All it needed was one high-profile debut to explode into the mainstream.
Apparently, this strategy is so good, so unbeatable, that it's the only way. So yeah, let me explain. You go Master Yi jungle, and you go Taric mid lane. But here's the thing, Taric doesn't actually take anything. He just freezes the wave, so Master Yi can just farm out everything, and it's I don't even know like what to say. Like, this is so stupid.
The first time most League fans saw tunneling wasn't in a ranked game, it was on the big stage. LCK Summer Split 2018, Game 1, MVP versus Hanwha Life Esports. Viewers tuned in expecting the usual opening week chaos. What they got instead was a masterclass in breaking the game. MVP locked in Nunu and Karthus, a duo built for Funnel. The game timer hadn't even hit 30 seconds before it became obvious. Nobody was actually playing mid lane. Instead, Nunu and Karthus roamed together like a two-man pack, sweeping jungle camps, controlling Scuttle, and collecting mid lane minions as if they had an unlimited budget. Hanwha tried to match them, but the sheer efficiency of having two champions constantly farming from two sources at once was impossible to ignore. Even in that first showing, it was obvious this wasn't some cute off meta pick, it was a weapon.
The speed of getting a certain AP value. Karthus and Nunu can actually hit close to 1,000 AP at 22 minutes, trivially. That's with getting a bit of extra kill gold, but
yeah,
given that nature, you can pick up so much early AP.
From there, Funnel spread like wildfire. Within weeks, it was showing up in every major region: LCK, LCS, LEC, and LMS, each experimenting with different champion pairings. Master Yi and Tara quickly became the poster children, but they weren't the only ones cashing in. There were Lucian and Braum duos, Alistar paired with Kai'Sa, even Braum protecting a Vladimir mid. If a champion could scale hard with gold and experience, they could be the centerpiece of a Funnel comp. And then G2 Esports decided to take it to another level. In Europe, they used Funnel to turn Perkz into an unstoppable mid lane machine, with Jankos running support picks to shield him while he devoured farm. But it wasn't just about clean funnels. LCK fans will never forget the day MVP rolled out a triple smite composition with no dedicated jungler at all. Two duos, one top, one mid, each controlling their lane and jungle simultaneously. The third smite? Just there for extra security. With priority in both solo lanes, they locked the enemy team out of camps entirely and ran away with the game. It was bold, it was bizarre, and it was absolutely brutal.
Ignar is waiting for his E cooldown.
He's in a lot of trouble here. There's the stun ignite and the flash stun as well with the taunt. First blood to the Lucian in the bottom lane. Big start for BBQ.
By the end of that summer, funneling wasn't just a strategy, it was a statement. If you didn't have a plan to beat it, you were already playing from behind. And for teams like G2, it wasn't just about winning games, it was about sending a message. We can beat you without even playing League the way it's meant to be played.
Enemy started is so important. Speaking of starts, we got so much already happening.
This is why I'm laughing. Nobody's in the mid lane. It's just like, it's 2v2 in the jungle right now. Finally, the red buff Karthus moves into the mid lane, Papa.
If you thought Funnel was bad to watch in pro play, solo queue was where it became truly unbearable. In coordinated team environments, at least there was some hope you could draft counter comms, coordinate invades, and actually punish greedy farming routes. But in solo queue? Forget it. There was no coordinated plan, no perfectly timed counter invade. Just 5 strangers, each with their own ideas, trying to figure out why the enemy jungler was never in the jungle and why the mid laner had 2 levels on them before the 10-minute mark. Master Yi and Tara quickly became the stuff of nightmares. This wasn't just a strong pairing. Statistically, it was the most dominant duo League had ever seen. Riot's own patch rundown at the time admitted it. Yi Taric had a higher win rate than even peak Xayah Rakan, a bot lane combo so oppressive it warped the entire game around them. In solo queue, where the enemy team often couldn't coordinate crowd control or track jungle pathing, a funneled Yi could walk into a fight, press Q, and delete anyone in range, all while wrapped in Taric's ultimate, shrugging off every attempt to kill him. And it wasn't just the games against Funnel that were miserable. Games with Funnel could be just as bad. If your Funneled carry fell behind early, the entire team was doomed. Remember, the whole strategy revolved around pumping every drop of golden XP into one champion. If that champion failed, there was no plan B. Your side lanes were underfarmed, your quote-unquote support was itemless, and your quote-unquote jungler had 0 vision control because they'd spent the last 15 minutes babysitting a carry that was now 0-3. The worst part? These games didn't feel like League of Legends. The normal back and forth of laning, the rhythm of jungle ganks, the small wins that add up over time, all of it vanished. Instead, matches revolved entirely around whether the funnel champion reached their unstoppable spike before the other team could stop them. And in most solo queue games, the answer was yes. It was oppressive, it was repetitive, and it was sucking the life out of the ladder. Pro players might have hated playing against it for strategic reasons, but for regular players, it was personal. Funnel wasn't just beating them, it was robbing them of the game they'd signed up to play. Now, there are ways to beat Funnel, at least in theory, and when it happened, it was glorious. Teams that managed to shut it down didn't just win games, they made a statement. One of the most famous examples came in the 2018 Summer Split when Misfits took on Fnatic. Fnatic had gone all in on a Funnel comp, running caps on Kai'Sa with their jungler dedicated to feeding him farms. Misfits knew exactly what was coming, and they didn't give it a chance to breathe. Before the 3-minute mark, they were invading the jungle, cutting off the first camp rotation, and forcing fights in the river before Caps could secure his precious Scuttle Crab. In just one skirmish, they blew the game wide open. Caps was denied gold, denied XP, and suddenly Fnatic's entire strategy collapsed. Without a funneled carry to lean on, the rest of the team simply didn't have the resources to keep up. Misfits rolled over them from there.
Misfits continue this invade. They're so aggressive early on here. Fnatic having to run for the win because Maxlor gets the stun onto Cap. Still the flash available for the Kai'Sa. The turn back, looking for those plasma stacks as well.
Oh, they're still fighting.
Just dancing around in the jungle early on. And this game already packed with action, only 2 minutes in.
The blueprints was simple on paper. Invade early, interrupt the farm cycle, and make the hyper carry fight before they're ready. In practice, it was much harder. Funneling wasn't about killing you in the first 5 minutes, it was about never giving you an opening. The mid lane support kept the wave perfectly managed, while the carry vacuumed every resource on the map. By the time you realized you were falling behind, they were already 2 items deep and impossible to duel. And then there was the Taric factor. Even if you had the coordination to catch the carry, you still had to burn through Taric's armor buffs, heals, and invulnerability from Cosmic Radiance. Add in challenging Smite's 20% damage reduction, and early skirmishes became a nightmare. You could throw everything you had at them and still watch the carry walk away with a double kill. In solo queue, counterplay was even less likely. Invades require trust, vision, and synchronized timing, 3 things that random teammates aren't exactly known for. And without that, your only option was to try and outscale a champion who'd already been given the resources to end the game by 20 minutes. It's no wonder most players didn't even bother trying to fight it. They just endured it, complained in chat, and prayed Riot would step in.
Master Yi and Taric both pop their ultis, they go on one person. Taric uses stun, Master Yi uses Q at the exact same time. There's absolutely no way you can dodge it because of the way Taric's stun interacts with Master Yi's Q. You get stunned, you get chilling smited. Master Yi can't be slowed, he can't take damage because of his ulti and Taric's ulti, and they just kill you. And then the more items Master Yi gets, the more unstoppable the strategy becomes.
When Riot swung the axe at Funnel, they hit their target, but they also clipped a few healthy branches in the process. The Monster Hunter penalty was designed to zero in on Funnel comps, but League is a complex ecosystem. Anytime you mess with gold flow, you risk upsetting balances in places you never intended. For one, the penalty often hurts legitimate junglers more than the people abusing the meta. Imagine you're ahead as a carry jungler. Maybe you've snowballed a few kills and are doing your job, controlling objectives. Suddenly, your bot lane dies and a massive wave is crashing into your turret. In normal circumstances, you'd clear to protect the tower and deny the enemy gold. But now, clearing that wave would actually punish you because your CS count or minion gold ratio triggers Monster Hunter. You do the right thing for your team and you get less gold for it. It created a lose-lose scenario. If you didn't clear the wave, you lost turret HP and handed the enemy free income. If you did clear it, you traded your time and therefore map pressure for a discounted payout. For a role that already relied on making efficient decisions, this was a brutal trade-off. Then there were the unintended meta shifts. When Riot briefly removed Monster Hunter in preseason 8.23, they introduced turret plating and reworked the bounty system. Instead of feeding gold through funneling, some players began focusing on farming turret plates for massive income spikes, often with champions who could shred towers early. Others exploited bounties, intentionally dying after cashing in multiple kills to reset their value while keeping the enemy from getting too far ahead. It even indirectly inspired new niche strategies like smite top lanes, where champions would roam to steal jungle camps and still have strong lane presence. The core idea was the same as Funnel. Take resources you're not supposed to have and snowball them into an advantage. Riot had killed the original beast, but the philosophy behind it, resource consolidation, was alive and well. In trying to eliminate one unhealthy playstyle, Riot had to accept that they'd make the game a little more awkward for everyone else. The developers called it ugly for a reason. It was a band-aid that stopped the bleeding, but it left a scar that players could still feel in completely normal games. And while the LCK and LEC no longer revolved around Funnel, that didn't mean the strategy was gone for good. In fact, in solo queue, it never really left.
Kill all of them.
Kill him. I killed them all.
Got so much gold from that. Let's go.
By the time Riot had smothered Funnel out of professional play, its reputation was already carved into League of Legends history. For most metas, once they're patched out, they fade into memory. They become a funny story you tell about that one patch where something got out of hand. Funnel was different. Even when it was gone, it lingered like a shadow. Part of that comes down to the mechanics that made it work in the first place. Tarek's Bastion Tether still allows him to protect Dazzle from wherever his partner is, even if that partner is in the middle of an alpha strike. The fundamental interaction that made Yi Tarek such a nightmare is still there, and in the right environment, with the right set of item and jungle changes, it could be just as deadly as it was in 2018. The other reason it keeps resurfacing is that its core philosophy, dumping resources into one hypercarry, isn't inherently tied to any single patch. It's baked into the game's economy. As long as a champion can take gold and XP from more than one source, funneling is possible. That's why, years later, you still see Smite top experiments, lane jungle hybrids, and solo queue Yi Tarek duos creeping into your games when the Monster Hunter restrictions loosen or when a particular set of jungle changes tip the scales. In many ways, Funnel became League's equivalent of Overwatch's infamous Brigitte meta. A strategy so disruptive, it forced the developer to rewrite the rules of the game. For Blizzard, that meant introducing role lock to stop unbalanced comps from ruining competitive play. For Riot, it meant building a permanent mechanic into jungle items just to keep Funnel in check. It's rare for a single strategy to have that kind of impact. And maybe that's why players still talk about it with a mix of disgust and awe. On one hand, it was miserable to play against, a black hole that sucked all the fun out of a match. On the other, it was a perfect example of how clever competitive players will push a system to its absolute limits if it means winning. Funnel wasn't elegant, it wasn't pretty, but it was efficient. It changed how Riot thought about balance, it changed how they designed jungle items. And it changed how players looked at the map, not as 3 lanes and a jungle, but as one giant pile of resources waiting to be claimed by whoever could get there first. Even if Riot keeps it out of the spotlight, Funnel's DNA is still in the game. And that's what makes it so disturbing, because the next time the right patch notes line up, it won't be gone. It'll be waiting. So here's the question. If you could bring Funnel back for 1 week just to relive the chaos, would you? Or should it stay locked in the vault with the other metas that nearly broke the game? Let me know what you think, because in League of Legends, nothing is ever truly gone. It's only waiting for the right patch to make a comeback. And there you have it. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, if you learned something new, or if you just want to see more stories about the legends who made League what it is, you should click on the other video on your screen right now. Thanks for watching Admiral Ace, and until next time, keep acing, gamers.